Hello, my name is Brett Stevenson. I'm a member of CPA Australia and I've been involved in, I guess over the last year or so, just trying to clean up the mess at CPA Australia, exposing it, and at various levels. It's been a bit of a torrid year. But I'd like to just record this very short message to academics involved in the accounting field. You'll probably be wondering why, but I think it is important because of your influence that we do say something to you, because a number of academics have been very much involved in our leadership, not necessarily for the better. And I think your influence over the profession and in relation to our accounting body is important. I just wanted to make this very short, just to speak with you, because we have a very important AGM coming up on the 22nd of May, just a week away. And I guess we really do need to get folks speaking up about this, because I would suggest we're losing a proxy battle, and we need to get as many members involved as possible. So can I just give you 6 reasons why I think academics should listen to this, and you decide yourselves. Far be it from me to tell you what you should listen to. I'm very much, I'm not trying to be unnecessarily humble here, but I'm very much just a journeyman accountant. I'm an alma mater from University of New South Wales, and it's been quite enjoyable actually getting back into the accounting textbooks, really, which I've had to do over the last year and a half, just to make sure I'm on the straight and narrow with a lot of the things that have been coming up. So the reason I think academics should be involved, and I've just got 6 very brief reasons. Firstly, I think almost all the university degrees in accounting link their professional accreditation back to CPA Australia or to CAANZ or the IPA or the management accounting bodies. So in a lot of ways, part of the attraction of accounting for potential students is the linkage back to the profession. So it certainly has a bearing in terms of your appeal to students who come and study accounting. Secondly, I think accounting membership organisations, although it's none of, in some ways you could say, as a couple of academics have said, it's none of their business how the organisations run. Many of you would be members of them, but the accounting professions, for good or for bad, really are very actively involved in setting the standards and much of what you teach at university. Thirdly, I think, for better or worse, the linkages with the universities are there. We've had Alex Malley, our CEO, and Richard Petty, who've been from Macquarie University, have been very much involved in the last decade of CPA, and Tyrone Carlin from the Sydney University. The best I could say is it has not been a glowing endorsement of their involvement at CPA. It's been disastrous, to be quite frank. And so the linkage is there, and I appreciate that some academics have spoken out, but many academics have been silent on this, and I can understand the reasons. There are all sorts of pressures you face, I can appreciate that. But yeah, at the end of the day, if we're not prepared to make a stand on things which really are fundamentally wrong in our profession and our organisations, I'm not so good. It looks very good on us. I mean, I would suggest many of you as academic members are just as guilty as myself and many other CPA members who have just stood by and allowed this to go on for too long. So can I encourage you to think about that anyway. The other few reasons are what has happened at CPA is a concern for all of us involved in the accounting profession. Because the membership organisations are a critical part of our profession. The profession itself relies upon what you folk teach and the impact it has on the profession itself. And clearly the standards which are set by the organisations or are actively involved in them. The other one, obviously, is you have an influence way beyond your number. I mean, there's no doubt that as accounting academics, you have probably a better perspective than many of us in terms of the needs and what's going on. So I think it behoves you really take a front foot on this, which may annoy some of you by saying that. And I guess the other two reasons, or the last reason really, is that there is a strong ethical component to the accounting profession, and we can't run away from that. We have obligations, and it's in the APESB 110, where the fundamental, foundational principle of our ethical obligations is they go beyond our obligations to our employer and to our clients. We have an obligation to society itself as professionals, and that requires us to take a stand. And I recall Drew Faust, the president of Harvard University, after the GFC and the Enron disasters in 2000, the GFC in the 2006, 7s and 8s, where obviously Harvard University lost a lot of money in their endowment fund, which is, as you probably know, it's big enough to be the equivalent of the GDP of most countries. But she drew attention to the fact that as a university, she recognised the fact that many of the students who were involved in those shenanigans are also graduates of their university and out of that ilk. And so it's important that universities learn from that and take a bit of responsibility for that. And insofar as Harvard University, she was encouraging greater interfaculty communication, so the graduates from their business school weren't just dealing with numbers, but they had a broader perspective and recognised what other faculties could provide. At my university, when I studied accounting and financial management at New South Wales Uni, it was obligatory for us to do 2 or 3 subjects, 3 I think it was, in non-accounting streams. And I'm sure that'd be pretty standard now. But it's important for us as accountants to have a broader view of the world and just a narrow view of the accounting, and that provides an ethical component to what we do and a broader component. So for those reasons, I hope you're able to get past that. These are just a few things I'd like to encourage you to think about in relation to CPA, because we've got 1 week, and some of the things that I feel we need to emphasise here is that the governance system at CPA Australia has been the root of all the problems. We've had a gerrymandered governance system, and those of you who will have read the independent report will probably have recognised that a lot of the problems lay in the fact that a small group or elite were able to virtually control the organisation. Now, we've had an independent review led by Ian McPhee, who was an Auditor General of Australia, plus 3 others. And quite frankly, I feel it was very, very soft. So much so that their recommendations for the governance changes, which are what the board are recommending at the AGM coming up, are so soft that they're almost just a dressing up of the old governance system. And that is what is most concerning here, because we're really replacing one gerrymandered system for another gerrymandered system. And if I can illustrate that reasonably well, the group who are going to now appoint the directors, as per what the new board are recommending, is just going to be 12 branches and council presidents or representatives from the 12 branches and divisions. And that is really, it's an unfortunate direction to go, because New South Wales has 42,000 members out of a total membership of 160,000, and they have the same voice as, for example, Europe, which has about 1,600 members, or New Zealand, which has 2,200 members. Each of those branches have exactly the same voice as New South Wales with 42,000. So if you combine, for example, Europe, New Zealand and the Northern Territory, they would have 4,400 members, 4,400, 2.75% of the total membership of CPA. They would comprise 25% of the group who would appoint the new board, as opposed to, for example, New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. They would have something like 96,000 members, which comprises well over 60% of the membership. They would have 2.75%, would have the same voice as 60%. Now, of course, the Ian McPhee's independent review panel were very favourable of that approach. They wanted to endorse an approach where no one group had undue influence. But I would suggest that's the weakest part of their review, and they were very, very negative on the idea of members electing directors directly, and they gave 8 reasons, and you can have a look at the report, which were very, very weak. I mean, almost pathetic. Well, I'm surprised they even assigned them. They were just so poor, but I'm sorry I'm saying this to academics, will probably shoot me down, but I think we're living with the consequences of that now, because the board are very keen to just pursue those recommendations, and that's what we will be left with unless we oppose Resolution 1, which is trying to endorse that governance system. So just in terms of governance, I think it's important we make a stand on this. There are lots of other issues in relation to that. The second one is just in relation to there's been no accountability. I don't know what your views are in relation to accountability of organisations, but in relation to governance, but if there is no accountability for our leaders when they do the wrong thing, I mean, to me that is an ethical issue, and it has a fundamental weakness of any organisation. So, for example, the boards that approved Alex Malley as CEO, as his annual salary of $35,000 a week, 1.8 million. I mean, when you put it in weekly terms, it gives you more of an idea of the scandalous nature of it. And then his termination pay of 3 years, when we know that public listed companies can only give a termination pay of 1 year without shareholder approval. And the board went on and increased that, double warned that 2 years was too much, and they increased it to 3 years. And then CPA advice. I mean, I hardly need to mention it to you. On a revenue of a subsidiary which CPA started to move into the financial planning area against many of their own members. They were on a revenue of $49,000 after the first 19 months. They'd lost $7.2 million, and $1.5 million of that went to these same directors and 3 senior managers of CPA who were already scandalously remunerated. Now, in anyone's book, that was scandalous. I mean, I just call it straight out greed, really. And for the boards not to be accountable for approving that just defies me. I cannot understand it. Yet we have a new board who have quite firmly said that they will not pursue that. And I've had legal advice. The members have put up $34,000, which much of that we've utilised to get legal advice. And our legal advice was quite the opposite. It said you should be able to pursue them on that. But it's very, very difficult with the new board, who are only firm in pursuing the recommendations of the independent panel, which certainly did not advocate that one little bit, any sort of pursuit of accountability. Clearly we're not going to get any type of finality from them. So accountability is an important issue. And the third thing that might be, or 2 other things that could be important, is one is in relation to accounting standards. Clearly CPA, along with CAANZ especially, are the 2 organisations which have representatives on most of the accounting boards, the IFAC, the AASB, AESB, which is the ethical one, and I just did a study of that the other day, and quite frankly, it's I don't know how our leadership still tolerate it. We have 2 immediate past presidents, recent past presidents, who are our representatives on the AESB, which is our ethical board, which establishes our ethical standards, Penny Egan and John Carl. And I've written an article on this, so I don't need to go into detail, but if we're going to have any credibility with accounting standards, we need to have good representatives on those boards. And unfortunately, we're tainted through what has gone before. Many of those people are still on the boards. And until we have a good representation, I think our standards are going to be woeful. I just look at things like the way we've gained the standards. We look at consolidated accounting. The consolidated accounting standards really have been gamed to hide that financial planning body. And you're probably all aware of, is it Frank? I had to pull his book out. Frank Clark, Graham Dean, and Kyle Oliver's book on corporate collapse, where really their organising principle was on the basis that often it's the accounting standards on consolidation which are being gamed, and we need to improve that. And there are lots of issues in accounting, which I've just been reading the book Contemporary Issues in Accounting, and I understand you probably think it's the first year I was getting the university subject, but it's been a great book by McGowan and 3 other authors, and I'm sure many of you have written similar books. I don't mean to just isolate that, but it's fantastic to identify a lot of the issues in accounting. And many of you will be aware of The End of Accounting by Lev and Gu, and I've just been reading another book, Unaccountability, by a journalist from America, Mike Brewster, dealing with the aftermath of Enron, etc. But the issues the accounting profession faces are enormous. You should be well aware of those, much better than I would. And of course it's dangerous for me to be quoting books to you, that's your expertise. But it's been, our organisation has wasted millions, literally millions. We've spent close to $30 million a year on marketing, Alex Malley, and TV shows and books, which are just ridiculous. And yet these issues, as we should have spent a lot of that money giving money to universities to research and to have a look at these issues to build up our profession. Because the issues we face, and I often think of the book The End of Accounting, I know their principal was talking the end of accounting, but I think it was just more a fact that this is where accounting needs to lift its game. The challenges before us have not been met. And now you of all people know those issues better than anyone. And I'm ashamed that our profession has not dealt with those things, and our organisation, I should say, has not been at the forefront of that. We've been rubbishing around trying to pick up members all over the world, promoting a CEO, and really dealing with cream puff stuff. Integrated reporting, we've made a joke of that. Integrated reporting in theory is a great concept, but we've gamed it. Minimum disclosure, we've gamed it. It just horrifies me that we as an accounting body have displayed the worst things, conflict of interest. So for those reasons, and the last one is just on the accounting profession itself. I mean, you lecture in accounting, but the profession itself really needs strong bodies of the practicing professionals who get involved and deal with the heart of these issues. And we haven't done that. We've had a decade of decline in CPA Australia. And can I encourage you as academics to really get involved or be engaged or speak out on this CPA matter, even though many of you may, and it's not a matter of being supportive of CPA Australia. I'm very supportive of CPA Australia, and all I'm doing is endeavouring to restore CPA Australia, to give it a little bit the designation and the organisation, the credibility it needs to have. But as academics, you have much more power than just a journeyman accountant like myself has. So I hope you don't take offence at my doing this brief email, but I would hope that over the next week you might be able to speak out and say something that we as accountants don't have that power to do. So thanks for listening. Okay, bye.